Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome to yet another session of Get Set Goal. A session on setting goals as a priority, setting goals with an advantage, and setting goals knowing exactly where do you want to place that ball right behind you. So, in today's session, I'm going to take you to a theme that I call the big picture. But before I go on to the telling you about what the big picture is, let me explain how this module works. We already spoke about the blind spot. We spoke about what limits you. We spoke about things that get in your way, the obstacles. We spoke about Alice falling in and Jack Ma chasing rabbits. Today, a little recap of how we ended up there is what is the big picture. The beauty of it is when you know your destination, when you know where you want to reach, when you know the ultimate result, you really know how to work hard for it. In simple terms, think of all the work that you do. Bal tu'siruna al-hayat ad-dunya walil akhiratu khayru wa abqa. Indeed, the dunya is, the beauty, the zina, the charm of the dunya. But indeed, the real tranquility is in akhirah, in Jannah. And when you understand the big picture, when you understand your ultimate goal, you know where you're going to, and the journey becomes easy. So today, one of the first lesson I want to give you is one of the most beautiful concept called the 7 habits. I'm sure you're aware of what we are talking about, 7 habits. If you aren't, go and study this beautiful book by Stephen Covey called 7 Habits of Successful People. In fact, his son has written another book by his son is Sean Covey, who's written 7 Decisions of Teenagers. A great friend of mine, when he came down all the way from South Africa, he saw the book and he said, "This is the only book I need to read because my work is with teenagers." While I'm very reluctant and miser and stingy when it comes to gift my books, I was very proud to give the book away because I know one of the best things you can share is knowledge, is ilm. And this is what I'm sharing with you. So, from the 7 habits that he has, Stephen Covey says something even more interesting. He said one habit that can tie all the other habits together, one habit that can ultimately put all your habits in one basket is the 8th habit, setting right goals. The goal setting that becomes a priority in your life, the goal setting that you and I are saying can become a huge help if you know where we are talking about. And this is what I want to talk about. The 8th habit, setting a goal. What's a goal as a habit? Say, example, when you get up in the morning, do you have to put an alarm to brush your teeth? Some of you have, then problem is with you. Please make sure your routine is a little better. You don't have to put an alarm. When you go out to play football, you don't have to put an alarm to wear your socks with your shoes. Please do that, otherwise shoes do stink. These are habits. Habits, there's another book called Atomic Habits, another lovely book that I'm talking about. These are what shape you in your personality. Imagine if goal setting becomes a habit for you, goal setting becomes a priority for you, how amazing your life would be. So, this is the first lesson in today's part, that make goals a part of your daily habit, a daily routine, and then goal setting becomes easier. A quick recap what we did. Goal is an acronym for a longer word that we describe getting organized about life. So that is what we really want to do, isn't it? You become so organized, the goals help you with a purpose. One of the most important lessons we learn are 2 experiments. The experiment of the bouncing flies, the fireflies, where the sealed container limited their thought. And we said, don't be a prisoner of your own thoughts. Don't limit yourself. Open up your mind. Don't be a prisoner in your own cage and you give yourself self limiting thoughts. You give yourself negative thoughts. That's not what good goal setting is about. Not having goal is like sailing across the Atlantic or the Pacific without a map, without any kind of organized structure. That's what an aimless life would be about. We also spoke about this hero. Yeah, we're not talking about the shields of Nick Fury, but amblyopia, eye blindness. We spoke about the blind spot and yet how you overcome it. One of the most amazing heroes, Keroli Takas, the world's best pistol hunter. His life, you go to the previous episode, an Hungarian who lost his dominant right hand, yet went on to win 2 gold medals in the Olympics just out of sheer determination, out of a purpose, and overcoming his weakness we call the blind spot. Right. So this is what big picture is about. Let me make sure that you see the full screen and you don't complain that you didn't have the right opportunity. Quickly pause yourself, give yourself a 30 seconds and tell me what or how many squares do you see right here? right? I'll continue to speak, but I would like you to pause and tell me how many squares immediately you can count yourself. I'm sure if you're like most of us, your first reaction was, and I'll help you with it, don't worry. How many did you get? 16, 17, 21, 26. Trust me, it is wonderful exercise. And I have a complicated structure, but this is a big picture. First of all, let's solve this riddle. So I made it a little easy for you. Most of you would have made it 16. So let me annotate for you. So from here, number 1 to number 16, you would have gone and made a square. Where are the others? Where are the squares? I get it. All right. So I'm sure. Let me just make a little thicker format for you. So you know that Daud is teaching us well. After 16, I think you have to look at these squares. Look, can you see that? So that's your square number 17. Then there's a square number 18, your square number 19, 20. Similar size squares, so I'm continuing the same way. Then there is 21. Can you see that? 22. All these four together is 22 now. I hope you're getting the squares here. It looks a little scrambled, but you're getting it, right? So we got a 22 squares right now. It's not over. Let me just change the format and make it a little more interesting for you. So I still have these squares here. So that makes it 23. And then I've got 24. Fair enough. I've got 24 squares. So these are good enough. So most of you would have stuck at 21, 22. But then there's a one in the middle also that I'm forgetting. So that makes it 25. Any more? Any more that you can get? Of course, the picture looks a little cluttered, but I hope you know what I'm talking about. Yes, the bigger squares. Usually we miss out on the biggest ones and we look at the easy ones here. So let me take the bigger one. After 24, oh my goodness, the big ones. Yeah, 3 by 3. Of course, they are. So that's now 26. And the same way I can go here, that's 27. And the same way I can go down with this one, 28. And finally, I can go to this one, which is 29. There are 29 squares. Did we miss anything else? Absolutely right. We missed out among the biggest one, that is this one, the entire huge square, which is 30. So there you are. When I started the first time, your initial reaction was just tell me 16, and you'll be happy with 16. And this is what big picture is about. You forget that bigger the squares, bigger the picture, sometimes you miss out on it. And that is what a lesson I want to clear it out to you. You miss out. So when, let's say, you're going out to a college, you're more focused on the food at canteen or what shoes to wear with your jeans, and you forget the very purpose of reaching the college, which was to gain education. Or it could be going to Taraweeh and you are more keen in the masjid, in the place of worship. Should I sit near the AC? Should I have a nice view of the Imam? And you forget the very qiraat, the very recitation that you went for to enjoy, to appreciate, to benefit from it. The big picture is we focus on the smaller things in life. Maybe how does my hair look like? By the way, it's really cut very short. Or is my glasses right? I'm sure first impression is a good impression, but impression is not the only thing. Focus on your talent, focus on your individuality, and you will grow here. So let me clear all of it for you. And I hope I can give you a better picture. This is a more complicated square. If I add just two more smaller squares out there, suddenly my number goes from 30 to 40. And you can screenshot it, you can take your time, you can look at it, and hopefully you will know what squares you're talking about. So this is what big picture is about. Big picture thinking says, do not limit yourself. Don't focus on the smaller things. You might be taking a bike and there is a small impediment, there is a roadblock, the tire gets punctured, and then you get so frustrated that you forget the very purpose where you want to reach. That's not what we're talking about. We are saying always focus on the goal. If this doesn't inspire you, the story will. One of my favorite stories that I'm talking about, the big picture story, is the story of David versus Goliath. What am I talking about? Yes, this is a biblical term, and I love the prophet because I share the name, the Arabic version. Actually, they say it's the Arabic version, Dawood alayhi salam, isn't it? Dawood versus Goliath in Arabic would be Jalut. And I would love to do the quizzes. So, who was the king? In Arabic, it is Talut, and in the biblical version is Saul. So this is a beautiful story about the king. He was traumatized by a monster of a man whose name was Goliath. And this is from an amazing book, one of my favorite books by Malcolm Gladwell. He's written books like Blink and Outliers and Tipping Point, and this is from the Outliers. In the book, David and Goliath, they are fighting, and when you look at it, you almost are certain that who's going to win. looking as all the, it's like Brazil in the footballing nation playing Papua New Guinea. And you know Papua New Guinea has no chance. You don't even know where they exist, right? This is the beautiful story. Dawood alayhi salam focus was the big picture. He did not focus on Goliath's strength. He focused on his strength. He did not focus on Goliath's power. He focused on his weaknesses, Goliath's weaknesses, and he knew what his weaknesses also were. So when Talut said, "Who will fight?" all the army soldiers, the big heroes, they step back. And this young shepherd boy comes forward and says, "I will take the lead." And because he had no option, Dawood goes there. And beautiful, the only pictures I could capture which would illustrate what this means. Now imagine Dawood is a shepherd, and with all his friends and his people and his well-wishers saying, "Dawood, Goliath is too big, Jalut is too big to hit." And what does Dawood say? He says, "No, he's too big to miss." I mean, look at it. The very same conversation is changing and saying, "I cannot miss him." And there they say, and this picture really represents that Dawood had nothing but a slingshot. Like what you call a catapult. A slingshot at this time, the people were so good. They were so good. They were so accurate. They could throw a slingshot in the air and they would hit a bird and the bird would fall down. And probably they would do the zabiyah and slaughter the bird right away. So this is Dawood's strength. They say Jalut was so strong, he was covered from head to toe in his armor. There was a shield and a spear in one hand. And this time, in the biblical version, where Malcolm Gladwell writes so well, Jalut is calling Dawood, come close, I can crush your skull." And Dawood knows that his strength is fighting from far. He cannot fight the monster close, one-to-one combat. Dawood might lose. But Dawood alayhi salam knew that his slingshot was his opportunity. He turns and turns and turns the sling, because from a distance, when you throw a small stone with the projectile notion, yes, get all your Newtonian physics fact right, it becomes the speed at a bullet. It's like Dawood alayhi salam has a bullet, 0.9 mm caliber, and you're shooting a man. Doesn't matter how big he is. And in his, Goliath had only thing that was uncovered was his forehead and eyes. And when the slingshot goes and hits him, it hits him right in his forehead, and the monster falls down. This is an amazing part. This is where I want to encourage you to understand that you focus on your enemy's weakness. You focus on your own strength. Don't go and play by their rules. Make your own rules and you will win. It could be your studies. It could be a career. It could be something online. What are your passions? What are your dreams? What are your goals? Go achieve them, because that's what story is telling you. In today's session, one final thing I want to explain to you is something even more beautiful. And this talks about the carp. What is a carp? They are also called koi carp, Koi, koi carp. Go Google them. What's the size of these fishes? I'm sure they're very ornamental in nature. You would have seen them in some aquariums, in airports nowadays, in malls perhaps, because they're very beautiful colored, like light yellow, orange, sometimes greenish brown. So what's the correct size of the Japanese carp? Go ahead, give a guess. You said 2 feet. When I did the seminar live, some of you said 5. Some of you went on to say a little bigger, but then you were, in between 3, 4, 5. And I said 5 meters or 5 feet. There's a big difference. When I say 5 meters, it's definitely taller than you. 5 feet, perhaps your size. Mostly you would see them a hand span, this much size. But the interesting thing about the Japanese carp is it grows according to the size of the container. How important is your environment? Your environment determines where would you land up with. So if the container is a small aquarium, that's where the carp will end up with. If the container is a large aquarium, the carps grow bigger. But that's not all. That's not all. Depending on where you leave them. Now the Japanese carp would also grow depending on its growing in a river, a free-flowing environment, or a conservative aquarium that way. So I'll show you some pictures which are very interesting. This is a happy, smiling lady. She's caught the same carp, the same species, just a different variation. It's a fresh river species. The carp has grown bigger. Did you see the previous carp, the ornamental? Now, what am I trying to teach you? When you have a big picture goal, depending on who are around you, are people motivating you? Is that your environment positive? Are you spending all your time in social media, on Instagram? If that is what you want to be, I keep saying being popular on Instagram is like being rich on Monopoly. It's no point, right? Go in the real world. I would rather have your picture for positive thing on Google search than on Facebook search. So this is a carp, but that's not enough. You want to be bigger? Well, I'll give you a bigger carp. Now, this man is really happy now because the size of his carp is much larger. Can you see the free-flowing ocean behind him? Now, that's a river, by the way, and the carp size has become big. You want to be little more bigger? The same species, this man is really struggling to hold the carp now. The carp is really, really big. How big is your goal? How big is your wish? Trust me, my brothers and sisters, my young friends, I always have this and I will repeat it over the next time that every Ramadan, I make a list of 10 goals. And trust me, my goals are audacious. My goals are big. And every Ramadan, before the next Ramadan comes, I go closer towards achieving my goal. Why? Because my promise to myself is who am I asking is bigger than what I'm asking. Who am I asking is bigger than what I'm asking. And there you are, the biggest scarf that you can find. Three men are struggling to hold it because their goal's bigger, the ocean's bigger, the river's bigger, the environment is bigger. So I leave you with this thought. Make your goals big because there's nothing impossible for your Lord. When you sit down to make a dua, don't make the goals too small, your duas too small, because remember who you're asking is Al Hayy Al Qayyum, is the Lord of the universe, is Rabbul Alameen, and that is what we are going to give you. So, where do you stand? What is your size of the cup? I will leave you with this thought. You want to be happy with this, like a lady who's smiling with her cup, or the man, or huge cup. The goals will set directions. It will give you a purpose to get up early in the morning. Trust me, without your alarm clocks and push you late in the night. It will give you a smile despite the challenges because your goals determine where you end up in life. Hopefully, you enjoyed the session. This session, we ran through some amazing stories. We ended up with the square example, the riddle of the square, and the story of Dawood and Jalut, my favorite story from many stories because I share the name. I hope you understand and you're getting closer to set your own goals. Until then, good luck, goodbye. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Set big, audacious, really long, big goals, and inshallah, you'll achieve them. Hope to see you again. Bye bye. Take care.